What's going on, guys? Kenan here with the 2002 BMW E39 M5, and today we're going to be fixing a long time problem that I have had, and that is to do with my pixels. As you know, Aston eat belts. My pixels are pretty well screwed, very common problem on high OBC BMWs, and today we're going to be going over the kit on how to replace the panel and fix those pixels. So step number one, you want to take the steering wheel and you want to move it down and back as far as you can from the cluster. So you use the control over here, go all the way down and come all the way back. So you have as much room as you will require to remove the bezel. The first step in order to do that is remove your side trim on this side and on this side. They're just held in with clips. Plastic pry tools will be your best friend to get under there and pry them out. Be very careful not to break the acceptors that are on these pieces, as replacing these, thanks to Luke and Ryan, having bought the last ones, is very expensive. On the E39 M5, of course, you have your TPMS reset button here. It's just connected with a couple of wires in the back. You simply pull that and remove it. It comes out very easily. The next step in the removal process is to remove those three screws there. They are a T10 Torx. They're very small, and then after you do that, you remove these Phillips head screws. There are two on this side and only one on that side. Then your bezel will be ready to be removed. Now when you remove the bezel, you're going to be also removing these. You're going to be removing the headlight switch on this side and the fog light switch on this side. It should be noted that once you unplug, I believe it is the fog light switch, it's one of the two. Once you unplug it, all the lights in the car are going to come on. They will not go off. Once you remove the cluster, I'd highly recommend that you disconnect the battery. Especially this is going to take this process usually takes 3 to 4 hours, so I'd recommend that you're very careful. You don't want to come out to a completely dead battery, so I would go to the back. I'll show you how to disconnect the battery here in just a second. In order to disconnect the battery, it's just a 10mm bolt on the back of this terminal. You just back that out and wiggle the connection loose. That'll disconnect the battery. Then I would close this little lid and set that on top of it, just so there's no chance that it will make contact while the car is sitting. Okay, so once you've removed that, there are two more T10 Torx that hold the cluster in. And they sit right there and right there. Once you remove those, then it's time to pull it out. There are two Molex connectors that I will show you at the back of the cluster that hold it in. That's all. The rest that holds it in, it should just slide right out without any issues. So there are three Molex connectors back here. The way these work is you press down on this little clip here and rotate the white section back and it unplugs. It's very easy. They're all three different sizes and three different colors, so you can't mess them up when you go to put them back in. You simply just disconnect this, press. And now the cluster is completely disconnected. Kind of getting it angled on the steering wheel is a little difficult, but there it is. One E39 M5 cluster. This one has never been opened up, it's still taped up, but we're going to change that. And yeah, this is what the back looks like. This is the panel we're going to have to remove next, but we're going to go inside to do that. The next thing you need to do is separate this whole panel from the plastic housing. The way you do this is you take 4 credit cards and you put them where these tabs are, just to keep them all depressed at the same time. Then you take a pair of needle nose pliers and you see these sort of cross-shaped tabs. There are 5 of them. You have to take them and then twist them. Oops, I broke the top of that one. But you have to take them and twist them into the orientation where there are locks. They're really not necessary to hold this onto the back. These tabs are more than enough. They're very difficult to get off. So you have to twist them. You do have to manhandle them in order to get them to where they need to be, and you have to twist them sort of beyond where they have to go. But once you do that, then it'll be very easy to remove the cluster. So you take it, you twist it like that until it's lined up, so it's still a little bit off. Then you have to take it and twist it some more, and you just repeat this process. I don't know why BMW added these. These are absolute overkill, but that's what you have to do. Once you have those lined up like that one is, then you should be able to separate the back from the visor housing, and then we can move on to removing some more fun stuff. The next step, once you have the cluster like this, is to remove these 8 T10 Torx bolts. These affix the faceplate to the circuit board that's on the back, which then houses everything else. So we're going to carefully remove these and set them off in a safe, dry location. The next process is a little bit tricky. So what you want to do, there are 2 tabs down here. You want to take zip ties and stick them in there. You can actually push them through to the back. That will allow this cover panel to be detached. The next thing then you have to do is you have to depress these little clips that are mounted one on both sides of each clip, or each connector. So you have to push them in there all the way against the base, push them in. I'm probably going to have to get another pry tool to do this, push them both in and then push it through. Be careful of course when you do this, because once it is disconnected this is going to want to fall forward, and you want to make sure that falls either onto something soft or that you catch it before it falls, just so you don't mess up any of your gauges. So this is tricky, this takes a lot of time and patience. Be careful, this is not a race, don't break anything, and just slowly work each of these clips out. They all work the same way. Depress one here, 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 and here. Now comes the most nerve-wracking part, and where you're going to want to be exceptionally careful. You have to drill 4 holes in your cluster, because BMW, although they design great cars, it's the stupid stuff like this they don't do well. There are 4 holes that you need to drill. One is located here. I had to guess a little bit where it was. One is located here in the center. One is located here under this cluster. And the last one I'm going to drill is over here. The easiest way to line them up is on the back here. You can take a look. They correspond with these 4 points. So try and line those up very carefully. This obviously this piece of paper is glued. So you're going to need to pry it up very carefully. The glue is not thick at all, though it comes up no problem. You don't want to drill through it for obvious reasons. You'll see the holes when you put it all back together. Take your time, be really careful. Start with a smaller bit like this, and then just work your way up to the large sizes that you need to. I haven't pulled the screws out, I have loosened them all the way, but they don't seem to want to come out. Maybe I'll try and get them with magnets, but I don't think they need to come all the way out. So just take your time, be careful. This works best with 2 people, one person to hold it and the other person to drill. But once you've done that, reward yourself, because this is tricky. Well, this project continues to be extra stressful. So the next step you need to do is to remove this back panel. So flip it over, set it down gently. You see these 3 pins here. They're not soldered in. You just simply grab it and work it back and forth and rip. You're thinking exactly what I was. It's nerve-wracking for sure. All the screws will stay exactly where they were on the other side. But yeah, you just take that out and rip it. This is the panel we're going to be working with, obviously, to replace the screen. It will then expose the ribbon cable, which that's the cause of your problem. I can't see anything specifically that would give a good example of what was failing exactly, but that's where the whole problem lies. So you're just going to simply grab this and carefully remove it from here, because all it's held in with is adhesive. So once you've done that, it's a very satisfying little rip. You then have to disconnect these 3, you have to disconnect the cover for the LCD panel from this plastic housing. The way you do this, there are 3 tabs on this side and 2 on the other side. The 2 on the other side come up very easily. These ones are obscured a little bit, so they will take a little bit of finesse to release. If you're replacing the LCD panel, then you don't particularly care about being careful. Simply don't break this cover. If you're not replacing the LCD panel and you're replacing the ribbon, then you want to be extra careful when you're doing this, because this LCD panel is very thin and will fracture very easily. So exercise great caution here as well. Okay, so one of your final steps of business before reassembly here is to make sure you go ahead and clean all of these contacts. Really, this is what causes your pixel problem. Rarely is it ever the failure of the LCD screen. These contacts get dirty, or they slightly become detached from years of just sitting there and heat cycling, and then the pixels die. These copper strips no longer translate electricity to the pixels, and they die. So what I did was I took a credit card, and you just scrape along all this adhesive to get the old adhesive off. So you have a nice clean mating surface in which to mate the new LCD panel ribbon to. What we've done here with the next step, again, this is going to be different whether or not you bought the ribbon cable just itself or the ribbon cable with the LCD already attached, which is what I did just because I thought that would be easier, and hopefully it is. But basically all you're going to do, I took a little piece of Scotch tape and I cut little holes here for these 2 screws. This one I couldn't fully get out, and this one I was able to remove completely. And I just used Scotch tape to tack it up here. Once I tighten this whole housing down, that should be enough pressure to hold it in place. But just to keep it in place while I'm flipping it over and adjusting things, I used a little bit of Scotch tape to tack it there, line up all of the contacts, make sure they're exactly in line with everything that's on the board, because obviously that's how you're going to direct current. Be very careful with this, make sure it is perfect, because if it's not perfect, well then those pixels aren't going to illuminate. You're going to lose, you know, a third of your entire cluster. So be careful to line that up exactly with how it is on the board. Before we begin complete reassembly of this kit, you're going to have to get a little bit crafty. So you see how you have these sort of pink silicone strips. There are 3 of them. You're going to need to get some kind of cardstock or some kind of post or note cards or something like that. You're going to need to cut them into accordingly sized strips. In my case, I've cut them like this, and then I'm going to bend them in half and then insert them into these little grooves here in sort of a V formation with the point sort of facing down. Now that of course presses these out a little bit further. That ensures that you're getting adequate pressure along the entire length of the ribbon cable. If you don't have adequate pressure, what's going to happen is that you're just not going to get light on the screen, or you'll get a couple pixels that will light up, but most of them won't. So it requires a pretty decent amount of pressure. This in conjunction with all of the clips and everything, and then of course the 4 screws that sit along the back will ensure that you have good pressure along the entire length of the ribbon cable. Make sure you have plenty of room. You can see how far those are sticking out. Not terribly far, but then again, if I try to push them down as far as I can, they don't go all the way in like they were before on the old ribbon cable. So part of me wonders if this isn't part of the reason why the ribbon cables fail, but that's just my own personal opinion. So yeah, make sure you have a decent amount of space in there, and hopefully that will ensure a nice adhesion surface for that ribbon cable. Next, as you'll probably notice, it was in the last clip, this white silicone strip white foam strip, excuse me, goes across the silicone pad, very similar to the ones that are back here. It's a much lighter pink. You're going to put that along there so that you have adequate spacing between the top of here and where the LCD panel is going to rest here. Of course, you also have a couple of other spacers that come that are already in your panel. I can't find them as there's one, as they're underneath the panel. They're little blue strips like this. Be sure not to lose these. They sit in this panel on these corners right here. They sit in there and just guarantee a nice. That's gotten stuck to my finger. They ensure a nice balance so that the panel stays flat and level, so that nothing's askew when you're trying to read it. So just take your time, make sure it adheses to this panel quite well. If it's humid, this might be hard. If it's dry, this might be difficult. So just take your time, make sure it's well pressed into this little silicone blade. So when you're reinstalling this rear panel, this rear I don't know what you want to call it, this plastic housing, it's easiest to start on the left side. You want to angle this in and be careful against this motor here. Just angle it in a little bit. You'll see what I mean. It sandwiches right here underneath the actual circuit board. Start with this side, get it lined up, push it in, and then line up this side on this side. There are 3 pins on each side, as we talked about with removal. Line them up, press this in a little bit, then press this in, then line that up completely. Again, if this screw has not come out, as it didn't for me, because I guess I just didn't drill the hole large enough, you just want to make sure that it lines up with this hole. Take a pair of tweezers or something like that and line it up, just so when you go to screw it back in, you'll have no problems. Other than that, it's pretty easy. The LCD panel is right there on the other side. I know it's hard to see with the shadow, but it's hanging down right there. I'm going to secure it. We're going to flip the panel over and take a look at it right now. So now back on the other side of the cluster, and then just simply fold this down, fold the LCD panel down and tuck it between those 2 white tabs. And that's pretty much your setup. Again, mine is completely sealed up against that because I bought the LCD panel already included with this. It was just a little bit more expensive, not much. I highly recommend doing this so you don't have to match up both sides of that ribbon cable. But other than that, we're ready to begin reassembly. I have left there's a protective strip on top of this just so I didn't fingerprint it all over the place. I will clean it with a microfiber anyway, but just so I didn't fingerprint it, I left that on there until this point, in which I'll take it off. There's one on the other side. I removed that prior to it being like this. If you haven't removed it already, you can still remove it. You still have access to that other side of the panel. Now I'm going to pull that off. I am going to reposition my little cover that went here on this LED panel, which again is not really applicable to the E39, or the M5, as that's more relatable to the other models in the range. But I'm going to put that back on, and we're going to begin reassembly of the cluster. Just one more thing I wanted to mention: if you see in the corner, see those little tiny purple blue colored little spacers. Be very careful not to lose those. Those guarantee that the screen will maintain a level surface when it's sitting in there. They're very long, and they actually stick down quite a bit into that plastic cartridge. But again, just be careful you don't lose those. I almost did until I realized, oh wait, that wasn't sitting quite level. Once you do that, everything should be just fine. Just a careful thing to note. So now I've put this faceplate panel back on. I have noticed an imperfection in the LCD panel, in that one of my pixels doesn't look like it is filled with LCD fluid, it being a liquid crystal display. I am positive that this camera will not pick it up, but we're going to go outside and we're going to test this. This is a very important step. Make sure you go outside of the car, plug the battery back in, and test the cluster. Obviously, you don't want to completely reassemble it if half of your panel doesn't work, so this is a very important step. We're going to head out to the car. We're going to do that right now. So now that we've got the cluster installed, I just want to show you how to do this before you really install it. So we're going to run a cluster test. This will reset all of the parameters on the cluster. It'll basically just do it'll quickly cycle through everything. So first thing you need to do is unlock the cluster. Since you've unplugged the battery in the car, you press and hold this. It'll say check control OK. You can already see that the pixels are significantly better. Then you go to test number 19, just press it, 19, and then hit this pusher over here on the left side. That'll allow you to unlock it. I've already turned the lock off, so that's fine. I'm going to go back to this side. Then all you do is you go to the test that you want. In this case, test number 2, press the pusher on the left, and it will cycle through everything on the gauges. It'll cycle all the lights and everything. You can check and see to make sure all your pixels are actually being utilized, which you can clearly see that they are. I love that it cycles through PRND. Obviously, this being a 6-speed manual, that's completely inapplicable to this car. But just make sure all the needles go back and forth. Make sure everything comes on. You can see, yes, I've just celebrated 180,000 and 2 years of 180,000 miles and 2 years of ownership, and now I can read everything on my cluster. No more Aston Eat belts for me. Basically, you just finish the rest of the installation process as we talked about. The 2 screws up here, the bezel, plugging everything in, the 3 screws that go on top, and the 2 screws on that side and the 1 screw on that side, and you should be good to go. Alright guys, everything works. Look at that. Nice and pretty. And I can finally see that it actually says fasten seatbelts. How nice is that? Yes, this job is not for the faint of heart. It is a lot easier if you take your time instead of trying to rush. But everything does work. It is really impressive how much pressure is required on the back of those that connecting ribbon cable in order to get nice legible letters. So just take your time and then obviously reset everything once you're all said and done. I've already reset my screen and everything. It is kind of early in the morning, but yes, just be careful not to break anything. There are DIYs online that can also help you if you need picture-by-picture instructions on how to do this. Again, the Pixel kit came from pixelfix.com. It was very helpful, and it came with everything I needed. And it should also be noted, they mentioned that you have to remove the needles on the M5. You don't. I did not have to take those off. I don't know about the standard 5 Series, but on the M5 that certainly wasn't the case. So just keep that in mind. So thanks for watching, guys. If you need any further instructions or any further clarification, please leave a comment down below and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Alright, so Ryan and I, as proud Kent State University students where the LCD display was invented, want to see what the hell is inside of this thing. So we're going to break it in half. Because that sounds like a good idea.
Why not?
Because why not? Here we go. Oops. Ooh. Ooh. Oh. Oh dear. Well, that contraties me, Captain. That's a dict.
Oh boy.
Let's see if we can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to split these apart or not. Oh, I can see the liquid.
So there were 2 panes of glass in there, and we saw some sploosage right down in there.
Alright, so that's like a tape covering, and then there are the two panes.
It's a lamination.
Yeah. And there are the two panes. You can see it there. I got a little bit of my on my finger in addition to the broken glass.
Do not try this at home. Leave it to the professionals at E39 source.
Yeah. Ugh.
Years in the industry.
That's right. That's effectively what it looks like. You can see. Yeah, there's not much actual liquid in there at all. But I guess you really don't need much.